What's going on, guys? Welcome to Everything Always. My name's Michael Roman, aka Allfires. Happy Spider Monday. I hope if you stayed up like I did last night, you were able to obtain tickets. Spider-Man No Way Home at least broke that corner of the internet, as all ticketing sites, all major ticketing sites, were experiencing processing issues or completely down. And while some of us were able to get through, like I did, after about an hour and a half of trying, it had a lot of us waking back up this morning to try to obtain tickets, waking up to an absolute bombshell revelation coming from producer Amy Pascal, longtime Sony producer who's still on the Spider-Man game and probably more in the know about Spidey's future than anyone other than Kevin Feige, confirming Spider-Man 4 and talking about Tom Holland's future in the MCU, other films, plural, to come, and what's going on in Spider-Man No Way Home. We have to break down what she said because it confirms a ton of rumors we've been talking about here at the channel for 2 years, the future plans for Tom Holland's Peter Parker in the MCU. And if you were worried that the title No Way Home implied that he'd find No Way Home back to the MCU, this interview addresses directly that, and in a great way. We're breaking down everything in this brand new interview with producer Amy Pascal on what's going on with Tom Holland's future in the MCU and No Way Home. But first, if you could consider hitting the subscribe button. We do daily Marvel content here at the channel, and that's all we do. So if you hit the subscribe button and leave a comment down below, you'll keep up with the videos, but you'll also be entered to win the PlayStation 5, which we will be giving away any day now at 900,000 subscribers, and continue to do a ton of giveaways all the way up to 1 million. So if you want to be entered to win, or if you're into daily Marvel content, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment down below. Stick around to the end of the video. We'll get into all the giveaway stuff again there. Now, while we're going to go through most of the questions in this interview because it's not that long and there's some really good Spider-Man and No Way Home stuff in here, we're going to start with when she started talking about Spider-Man 4, Tom Holland, and what's going on in the collaboration with Marvel Studios. Fandango started by asking, as you wrap up this trilogy of films in collaboration with Marvel Studios, and didn't even get to finish the question, prompting Amy Pascal to interject and say, "Can I say something about that?" Fandango said, "For sure," and she said this, quote, "This is not the last movie we are going to make with Marvel. This is not the last Spider-Man movie. We are getting ready to make the next Spider-Man movie with Tom Holland and Marvel. It just isn't part of," she pauses, "we're thinking of this as 3 films, and now we're going on to the next 3 films. This is not the last of our MCU movies." Fandango, it's great to know that the collaboration is going to continue. Amy Pascal replied, "Yes, Marvel and Sony are going to keep going together as partners." Now, before we start jumping to a lot of the other questions in the interview, let's unpack this and make sure we're all on the same page. Yes, Marvel and Sony, they're going to keep working together, especially on Tom Holland's Spider-Man, a character that originated in the MCU. But when she said it just isn't part of and then paused, well, you guys have heard the rumors that perhaps Tom Holland's Spider-Man could take a one-way ticket over to the Venomverse that includes Morbius and, well, a Craven movie that's coming up that still doesn't have a Spider-Man, and that indeed would find him with No Way Home. But more complex than that, she said this is not the last of our MCU movies, implying that even if it does work like that, all of the now existing adjacent universes are going to be canonized into the MCU following not only this film, but Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. If they assume that moving forward, and Marvel Studios is directly involved with the co-promotion and the co-production the same way that they are with these MCU films, it just could be Tom Holland in a different universe that's still MCU canon, and everybody gets what they want, mainly Sony and their modern Sinister Six that includes already Venom, Morbius, and an upcoming Craven film that again still doesn't have a Spider-Man. Now, of course, that would be in lieu of them doing something like a Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield revival, but I've always said since the beginning, I thought that was a total long shot, especially with how long Tobey Maguire's taken off from making films. He's not jumping headfirst back into a Raimi Spider-Man 4. Andrew Garfield is also doing a ton of other stuff. I just thought it was most likely they'd come back for this film, have this moment, and then break off. But the confirmation here, the huge takeaway, is that Marvel and Sony are going to keep working together, and not only that, there's another Tom Holland trilogy coming. As I mentioned in the prologue, this backs up the reports from like 2 years ago coming from industry insider, friend of the channel, friend of mine, Mikey Sutton, who said originally the plan was always to do 3 Tom Holland trilogies. One of him in high school, one of him in college, one of him as an adult. This is seemingly confirming at least 2 parts of that. We've got one of him in high school. This next trilogy will be of him in college. If it works out that way, if he even makes it to college, Spider-Man, no way he's going to college. And then another one of him as an adult. hoping that we get that far. But remember, guys, Spider-Man, some of the most lucrative superhero IP, some of the most lucrative IP out there ever. No matter what happens with the future of superhero cinema, they're always going to be making Spider-Man movies. Speaking of which, let's jump into this interview and wrap up some of these other cool questions that were asked by Fandango and what Amy Pascal said in response. First, she was asked, how would you say Tom Holland's Spider-Man evolves as a character in this third film? She responded, I would say that this movie deals with everything. It's about family and love, horror and sacrifice. It's always been centered around those decisions that Spider-Man has to make, right? It's always about him being torn between the moment that he's in and the destiny that's in front of him. And that's what he's dealing with in this movie. They went on to ask, how do you think that Tom Holland has separated himself from previous versions of Spider-Man played by Tobey Maguire and Andrew? Amy Pascal had to say this, I think each of the actors brought their own kind of humanity to the character. All of them are brilliant and Tom is singular. I think that he's embodied everything about Peter Parker that everybody was looking for. He's funny and charming and a fantastic athlete, a wonderful actor, and he has such humanity. Fandango said similarly, Zendaya and Jacob have been there alongside Tom for all three films. Amy answered, you know, the three of them grew up together on these movies, and I think this one was really poignant for them, since they started as sophomores and in the end, they're seniors on these films. And I think it was very emotional for them. They really grew up together, and everyone knows they're all great friends. Fandango, this movie has so many little intricacies to it. It has been one of the more difficult Spider-Man movies to sort of keep under wraps because of all the big surprises, ? Amy Pascal. Boy, you could probably answer that question. You know, yes, we don't want to spoil things for people. You know, one of the problems with these movies is that people know everything before they walk into the theater. So we've been trying to make sure that people get the full theatrical experience when they go into the movie. And yeah, you try to never confirm anything in any movie, but this is a big one, which for her was actually a great answer. Quick side note, that is a real answer from her. And generally, sometimes they really try to sugarcoat questions like that, but I kind of wish I had heard the audio for her explaining that, because that sounded like she just kind of threw her hands up like Andrew Garfield at this point and was like, yeah, you got us. What do you want from us? Biggest movie of all time. Of course, stuff leaked. They went on to ask, while looking back at this specific trilogy, what's been your biggest takeaway from the collaboration with Marvel Studios? And do you think that this is something Hollywood could build from in the future? Or do you think this is like a rare bird or rare spider? Amy Pascal laughed, rare spider. Spider-Man has always been very special and different from everything else. But I think that the beautiful thing is you had two big corporations that decided to work together for the good of the story and the character, and I don't think that that's always the spirit that you see. Yeah, working together and helping each other to make things better is a good model. Fandango, is it tougher to weave together this Spider-Man universe in because Sony also has this other universe with characters like Venom and Morbius, and then there's MCU characters? Is it a bit of a juggling act to manage all of these different characters? Amy responded, well, there's the Marvel universe, which is one container, and then there's the Spider-Verse movies, which are different, and then there's the other universe where Sony characters are in. And they're all very respectful of each other and work together to make sure that we're only being additive. That's a really interesting response, that they're only being additive, that each one adds to the other instead of taking away and or decanonizing. And I think that that is embracing the philosophy now that Marvel Studios has taken. Everything is adjacent to the MCU and they're sort of the self-ordained sacred timeline. Fandango goes on to ask, you're very familiar with Spider-Man movies over the years, so where do you think No Way Home ranks against the other live-action Spider-Man movies? Do you think that this is an all-timer for Spider-Man? Well, I certainly hope so, she said. The audience in the world will be the judge of that. Kevin Feige are very proud of this movie. Fandango says that this film begins to explore more of the multiverse, but in live-action form. Audiences are a lot more familiar with the multiverse thanks to the animated Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse film. How important do you think the multiverse storytelling will be for comic book movies over the next 5, even 10 years? Amy Pascal responded, I think you're going to see a lot of people exploring those worlds because it's interesting. The parallel universes make for so many interesting stories, but I don't think that every single movie is going to end up taking place in the multiverse. I think it's really exciting, and this movie certainly does. Fandango then asked, we were just talking to Phil Lord and Chris Miller about Into the Spider-Verse, and we asked them about the much larger presence of the multiverse and storytelling now in film and TV. Is it right to say that comics did it first? Amy Pascal said, yeah, it was. When I approached Chris and Phil about doing Spider-Verse movies, and I was still running Sony, I said, can you guys figure out how to do an animated Spider-Man movie? And the first thing they said to me was, absolutely, if we do a Spider-Verse movie, we do Miles. And I'm like, right on. Because of course, it's in the comics, and nobody could have done it better than them. I love that. That was Amy's pitch to them, and they're like, oh yeah, we can definitely do that, as long as it's Into the Spider-Verse with Miles Morales. Pretty amazing. Fandango said, how are things going on the second Spider-Verse movie? Amy answered it's going to be fantastic. They asked her a lot about the live action Miles Morales and what do you want to see for those things? Do you have stuff in the works? Which, man, Fandango, way to go for the jugular with some of these questions about live action Miles Morales or Spider-Man, Tom Holland going up against Tom Hardy's Venom. This is what she said. I would say there are so many things that we're going to be able to explore, but we always have to do before we decide who the villain is and going to be and what Spidey goes up against is what the story we're telling is about. You know, what's Peter's story we're telling? What's Miles' story that we're telling? Because we can always start with that. And the good thing about these movies is they're like a big canvas that can take place and can just be, and always the stories about a kid, meaning they can get to all that stuff as long as they're serving the story first. Fandango, just a kid from Queens. Amy Pascal, a kid from Queens or Brooklyn in the case of Miles, right? Fandango, of course. Amy Pascal, in the case of Peter, he's just a kid from Queens who's got no money and wishes he could have a normal life. Fandango, do you think we'll ever see Tom's Spider-Man in a movie not connected to the MCU? Again, Fandango, hats off here. Amy Pascal, we want to keep making movies together. How's that for an answer? Fandango, that's a good answer. Amy, as we wrap, what do you hope audiences take away from No Way Home? What do you hope they're talking about as they leave the theaters? And Amy had to say this, you know, Spider-Man is different for each person at different ages in their life, you know? He means one thing to you when you're a kid, he means another thing to you when you're in the middle of your life, and another, I think, when you're older. I hope everybody finds that in this movie. I think that this movie is for everybody, and I think it speaks to a larger audience, and that's what I'm hoping. Guys, I'll leave a direct link down to this article in the description, but let me know down in the comments all your thoughts and reactions to all of this. And quickly, let's get into the giveaway stuff again before I let you go. All right, we're still giving away a PlayStation 5 now at 900,000 subscribers, which I'm assuming will hit today, but don't worry, we'll continue to give away PlayStation 5s, probably at the 25,000 subscriber mark, all the way up to 1 million, plus a ton of other crazy giveaways. We've got some really cool stuff lined up for this year. So if you want to be entered to win, or if you like daily Marvel content, or if, you know, you want to hang out, watch some more videos on Marvel stuff, you know, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment down below, because it's genuinely random. The best way to do this is the more videos you comment on, the better chance you have of winning. We run a random picker, it chooses a video, it chooses a comment. Again, so if you've commented on more videos, you only got to comment once. It filters duplicates, so you only got to comment once on each video. You comment more if you like, but that's it. It's really simple. The best way to keep up with the content is to hit the notification bell with all notifications turned on, so no matter what happens with YouTube's algorithm that day, you get a notification. And of course, as always, if you like today's video, me, the content of the channel, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit the like button. My name's Michael Roman. You can find me over on Instagram and Twitter at IamFires. You can also find me on Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, Apple, iTunes Music, wherever you listen to original music under the name All Fires. I'd sincerely appreciate it if you check that out. Thanks for checking this channel out. Stick around. We'll be posting again real soon. Happy Spider Monday.